You think you know fairy tales? You think they begin with a prince, a princess, or a magical spell. But some stories go unseen. Stories written in the quiet shadows. In the spaces between the spotlight and the stage, the stories of the ones who make happily ever after possible. If you love uncovering the hidden truths behind every story, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales you've never heard. I am Lyren, a stable boy, a helper, a ghost behind the grand events of a kingdom. My life was not meant to be remembered, and yet it was full of purpose. Elara. She was the heart of the story. Radiant, kind, and gentle beyond reason. The world saw only her brilliance. They never saw the nights I spent ensuring her light could shine. Fairy tales always have helpers. A fairy godmother with magic in her hands. A loyal squire running errands in the dark. A friend who sacrifices everything for the happiness of another. I was all of those things, and none of them at the same time. When the kingdom announced a royal ball every girl dreamed of attending, Elara dreamed quietly, secretly. Her stepmother crushed those dreams before they could bloom. No gown, no permission, no hope. I felt my chest tighten. I wanted to protect her, to make the impossible possible. I wanted her to have one night where the world was gentle. That's when Meadow appeared, the fairy godmother's apprentice, small and determined. Her magic was fragile, but her heart was strong. She looked at me and said, "You have the heart. If you help, she will have her chance." And I knew, in that moment, that my life would no longer be quiet, that my heart would be tested, that my love would never be returned. But I would do it anyway. Helping her was not glamorous. It was quiet work, done in the shadows. I mended torn fabric, stitched folds with trembling hands, arranged parcels and charms at her door. Every gesture was small, invisible, yet heavy with meaning. I pricked my fingers on the thorns of moonflowers. I spilled my own blood into seams of gowns. I ran errands through rain and darkness, deflecting guards, hiding her path, caning her safety. Meadow wielded magic like a candle in the wind. I wielded devotion, a wielded love that could never be spoken aloud. We worked together to create the dress, the shoes, the carriage, and every night I watched her from the shadows. Her tired eyes, her soft hands, her quiet, resilient heart. I left gifts she never noticed, a loaf of bread, herbs for comfort, a charm for protection. She thanked the unseen giver. I never let her know it was me. I didn't need recognition. Her happiness was enough. I could have asked for her attention. I could have confessed my feelings, but I didn't. Because love is not always meant to be claimed. Sometimes love is meant to be given freely, even when it breaks you. The nights before the ball were the hardest. We worked tirelessly. Hours in the stables, under the moonlight, stitching, running, preparing. Every detail mattered. Every fold of the dress carried hope. Every charm, every petal, every thread carried my heart. And still I remained invisible, a ghost behind the magic, the shadow behind her light. The night of the ball arrived. I watched from the distance. The carriage glimmered, the gowns sparkled, and the world saw only Elara. She looked radiant. She looked alive in a way I had never seen. She laughed. She danced. The prince held her hand and the kingdom cheered, and I stood in the shadows, my heart heavy, because every step she took toward happiness was a step away from me. Every smile she wore was a reminder that my love was silent, visible, unclaimed. I wanted to call out. I wanted her to know. But the truth is, some love is never meant to be returned. Some love is the foundation beneath a fairy tale. Meadow placed a hand on my shoulder. "You did this," she said softly. "You gave her the chance." I nodded. I smiled. But inside, the ache of unspoken words cut deep. Because in making her dreams real, I lost the chance for my own. I followed her path as she fled the palace at midnight. I led guards astray. I broke branches to hide her steps. I left trails to confuse the dogs. I picked up the glass slipper she dropped and then set it back in its place, knowing it was not mine to keep. Her story was hers. and I would watch it unfold from the shadows. This is not just a fairy tale. This is the story of every person who stands behind another's success. Every friend who stays silent while supporting others' dreams. Every sibling who sacrifices their desires. Every colleague who works tirelessly to ensure someone else shines. We are the unsung heroes, the invisible architects of happiness. We give our hearts, our time, our effort, and we rarely, if ever, receive thanks. Yet the world depends on us. Every grand love story, every triumph, every happily ever after is built on the backs of unseen sacrifice, and it is in those quiet, unnoticed moments that real love and real courage are forged. I watched Elara leave for the palace. She smiled. She laughed. Her happiness glimmered like sunlight, and I stood there in the shadows, my hands raw from labor, my heart aching from silence. I realized then that happily ever after is not just about being loved. It is about giving love, even when it is never returned, even when the world never acknowledges it. This is the truth behind every story you know. For every hero, there is a helper. For every love, there is a sacrifice. And for every ending, there are hearts that break quietly in the background. I am one of those hearts. And though no one may remember my name, I will always remember the power of unseen love, because the greatest magic in any story is not the spell that changes the world, but the love that changes someone's life even when it leaves your own empty. The morning after the ball, the kingdom buzzed with excitement. Every girl whispered about the mysterious beauty who had captured the prince's heart. Everyone admired her. Everyone celebrated her. Everyone. Except me. I walked the quiet streets feeling invisible in a world that had suddenly come alive. Every cheer, every smile, every story told about Elara reminded me that my place was behind the curtain. I had built the stage. I had woven the magic. And yet, I would never step into the spotlight. Some nights, I replayed her laughter in my mind. The soft sway of her dress, the glimmer in her eyes, the way she moved as if the world were finally kind to her. And I could only watch. I had moments of near confession. I could have told her the truth. I could have whispered the nights I spent in rain and cold. I could have said I am the one who made this possible, but the moment never came, because I knew that truth might pull her from her fairy tale. And I could not do that. Love, I learned, is not always about possession. Sometimes it is about sacrifice. Sometimes it is about giving someone else the life you will never have. And sometimes it is the quiet ache in your chest that proves your love is real. Even after the ball, my duties did not end. I ensured the roads were clear for her carriage. I watched for dangers she could not see. I repaired the smallest tears in her garments. I ran errands nobody knew about. Every act was a layer of protection. Every gesture was a thread in the fabric of her happiness. The kingdom praised her courage. The prince adored her. And I remained the silent architect, unseen but essential. At times, the weight of my own longing pressed down on me. I imagined a world where I might have been noticed, where she could have seen me as more than a helper. But those were just fleeting dreams, impossible to grasp. And still, I worked. Because true devotion does not ask for return. It does not wait for applause. It simply acts. Watching her live my dreams instead of me cut deeper than any blade. Each time she smiled at the prince. Each time she spoke words of joy. Each time she laughed without knowing I existed. It was a reminder of everything I would never have. And yet, paradoxically, it was also a source of joy. Because I knew my efforts had made it possible. Her happiness was proof of my love. I thought about all the silent hearts out there. Friends who quietly set up relationships for others. Siblings who put family above their own dreams. Colleagues who labor tirelessly so someone else succeeds. We are everywhere. Invisible, unrecognized, essential. And yet our stories are rarely told. Love and sacrifice do not belong solely to kingdoms and castles. They belong in our own lives, in our own worlds. Consider the friend who stayed up all night to comfort you. The sibling who gave up opportunities so you could have yours. The coworker who works overtime so your project succeeds. These are the modern Lyrens, unsung, unseen, and yet their impact is monumental. I realized that my story was not unique. There are countless invisible hearts shaping countless fairy tales. People who labor without recognition, who give without expectation, who love without being loved back. And perhaps that is the truest form of heroism. To sacrifice your happiness for the happiness of another. To walk unseen but leave footprints on the lives of those you care for. There were moments when I almost despaired. When I wondered if my love, my labor, my sacrifices were meaningless. But then I remembered. She laughed. She smiled. She lived, and I knew I had been part of that. Even if the world would never acknowledge it, even if no one would see my name in the stories told, I started to understand something profound. The greatest acts of love are not those celebrated by others. They are the quiet, unseen acts. The ones that build the foundation of every happily ever after. And in that realization, I found a fragile kind of hope. I watched from afar as Elara rode off toward her future with the prince. The carriage gleamed in the sunlight. She waved, unaware of the hands that had made this possible, and I smiled, because someone had to make her dreams real. Happily ever after is rarely the story you see. It is not just love, magic, or destiny. It is the countless acts of quiet devotion, the hours of labor unseen, the heartbreaks hidden behind a smile. That is the magic most people miss. And it is the magic I had lived. I learned to see my life differently. To understand that love is not measured by who holds your hand, it is measured by how much you are willing to give without expectation. This realization did not erase my pain. It did not make the loneliness disappear, but it gave me purpose. A reason to continue walking the roads of sacrifice, because the world always needs Lyrens, the invisible hearts, the unsung architects of love. And maybe, someday, someone like me will be seen. I watched her leave for the palace, the sun catching the gold of her hair. The kingdom celebrated her, the prince adored her, and everyone marveled at the story unfolding, and I stood in the shadows. The quiet ache of unspoken love filled me. Every laugh, every glance, every spark in her eyes was a reminder of the life I had given up for her. There were moments I wanted to call out, to tell her the truth, to say, I am the one who made this possible. But I never did, because some love is not meant to be claimed. Some love is meant to be given silently, completely, and without recognition. I walked alone through the streets I had once cleared for her carriage. I saw children playing, merchants laughing, people celebrating. The world moved on, and I moved with it, unseen, unacknowledged, but still present. Even in the quiet there was satisfaction. I had built her happiness. I had shaped her story. And though my name would never be remembered, I knew the truth of what I had done. This is not just a story about castles, magic, or royal balls. It is the story of every person who stands in the shadows, who supports others without expectation, who sacrifices their own dreams to build someone else's. Consider the friend who always listens, the sibling who gives up their dreams so their family can succeed, the colleague who works tirelessly so another shines. We are the invisible heroes. We are the unseen hands shaping lives, the quiet hearts that hold everything together, and yet the world rarely notices us. We are not celebrated in songs or poems. Our love and effort are taken for granted, often unnoticed, but our impact is monumental. Without us, the stories that captivate the world would not exist. The happily ever afters would crumble. The triumphs, the love, the magic, they all depend on the quiet sacrifices no one sees. I am one of those hearts. And if my story has taught me anything, it is that love is not always about being recognized. It is about giving completely, even when no one knows you exist. Happily ever after is not just a life of love and joy. It is built on countless unseen acts of devotion. It is the sacrifice of the people in the shadows. It is the quiet hearts who choose to give without expecting anything in return. I gave her wings. I cleared her path. I kept her safe. and I let her fly, even though I could never join her in the sky. That is the essence of true love. It is not possession. It is the selfless act of caring so deeply for someone else that their happiness becomes more important than your own. I have learned to accept my place in the story, to find pride in the work that will never be acknowledged, to understand that my life has value, not because I am remembered, but because I have changed the world for someone else. And maybe one day, someone will see. Someone will recognize the invisible hands, the unseen hearts, the quiet sacrifices. Until then, we continue. We continue giving, loving, and shaping stories from the shadows, because the world needs us. Because the greatest magic in any story is not the crown, the gown, or the glass slipper. It is the love that fuels it, often unseen, often unclaimed. So when you read a fairy tale, or watch someone's life blossom, remember the invisible heroes, the silent architects, the hearts that never made it into the story yet made the story possible. I am one of those hearts. And though my love is silent, it is real, and it matters. This is the truth behind every happily ever after. It is not complete without those who give from the shadows. It is not real without the sacrifices no one sees. And it is the quiet love, the unseen devotion, that makes every story worth telling. You think you know fairy tales? You think they begin with a prince, a princess, or a magical spell. But some stories go unseen. Stories written in the quiet shadows. In the spaces between the spotlight and the stage, the stories of the ones who make happily ever after possible. If you love uncovering the hidden truths behind every story, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales you've never heard.